Today we're in the Chiltern Hills, in a town that can lay claim to be the home of English theatre. Because it was right here, on this piece of grass where I'm standing, that the first play ever written in English was performed, also in English, and it was penned in the 12th century by Geoffrey de Goron, and it's about the martyrdom of St. Catherine. This church is all that is left of Dunstable's medieval priory, and as you can see, it's a wonderful mixture of architectural styles, but that's not what I'm here to see today. From its humble beginnings, this priory has carved out a unique place in English history. It marked the beginning of a religious revolution and signalled a literary milestone. Dunstable Priory was founded in 1131 by Henry I, and it took 80 years to complete. It was part of a widespread church building programme after the first millennium and quickly became an integral part of the town. Over the years, the priory slowly established its importance within the realm. However, it was the events surrounding the end of two very different royal marriages that helped seal this church's place in history. Events depicted in these windows. In the royal window, you can see the body of Eleanor laid out here in the priory on her final journey from Lincoln to Westminster Abbey in 1290. And you can see Edward kneeling just there beside her. Above her coat of arms are the initials of the King and Queen, and they're linked with a lover's knot. But we have to fast forward more than 200 years after Eleanor to the turbulent reign of King Henry VIII for this priory's defining moment, which is hinted at in this window, and significantly, the lover's knot is now broken. And that break illustrates Henry's divorce, or more accurately, the annulment of his marriage from Catherine of Aragon, which was finalised here in the Priory's Lady Chapel. It was a turning point in English history, which led to the Reformation of the Church and the eventual dissolution of the Priory, along with most other religious houses in England. I've come to meet local historian Hugh Garrard to learn more about the Priory's pivotal role. Why did Henry want the annulment?
Henry wanted the annulment because he was desperate to have a male heir. Catherine had many miscarriages. Their only son had died at 2 months old, and the only surviving child was a daughter called Mary, who would later become queen. He was sure that God was punishing him because he had married his brother's widow.
Right.
And also he thought that Anne Boleyn would be to oblige him in the matter of a son.
Yes.
So that was why he wanted the matter of Catherine settled.
Why did the annulment happen here in Dunstable and not in London or Rome?
If it happened in Rome, then he knew the Pope would influence the outcome. If it happened in London, then the people would be very upset because they liked their queen, they were very fond of Catherine. So it had to happen somewhere in between.
So not to cause a big fuss, basically.
That's right, somewhere nice and quiet and peaceful.
Yeah. So what happened?
The Court of Annulment was called here in Dunstable. Archbishop Thomas Cranmer came, and many of the bishops and the legal people of the day. They met in the Lady Chapel in 1533. They spent a week discussing the pros and cons of it, but I think it was a foregone conclusion. If they sided with the king, then the Pope would excommunicate them. If they sided with the Pope, then the king would probably have them beheaded. No contest.
No, there isn't. And was the significance far-ranging?
Yes, it had long-term implications for the church in this country. I'm sure that Henry himself was a Catholic to the day he died. He wanted to be head of the English Catholic Church and break from Rome. But the long-term significance was that it led into the Reformation and the establishment of the Protestant Church in this country.
So how did the church survive the dissolution attached, as it was, to the priory?
That's a very interesting question. It's all to do with roofs, really. If you come over here, I'll show you. At the end of the 15th century, the wealthy families of Dunstable formed themselves into a fraternity, the Fraternity of St. John. they were responsible for the upkeep of the roof. So what they did was they took the roof off and lowered it to a manageable level. So at the time of dissolution, Henry VIII's men came to take the roof off everything, which was the standard practice of the day.
Yes.
And the local townspeople said, you can't take the roof off this piece because our parents and grandparents paid for this. This is our church, which is why we've still got this part of the building left.
Lovely story. So Henry definitely made his mark on Dunstable.
Oh, he did, very much so, for good or ill.
But it was his Catholic daughter Mary who was to leave a more lasting impression on this church.
This is a Marian screen, which was put here in about 1555. Mary is now Queen. She remembers what happened here. This is the place where her mother's marriage was annulled and where she was declared illegitimate.
So she's pretty upset.
She's pretty upset about it. She's Queen and she's going to have her say.
I mean, how is this her comment?
The symbols are across the middle of these pillars. So we have the fleur-de-lis.
Well, that's Catholic, isn't it?
That's a Catholic symbol. We have the pomegranate, which was her mother's symbol. And right on the very end there, we have the double-headed eagle, which was the symbol of the Pope of the day. Was it just this small piece of screening, or did this go right along? It originally went all the way across the church. Right, so it was in your face, basically? Oh, it was, yes. It was a big statement, it wasn't just a little one like this. This is all we've got left of it. Well, the Priory certainly had a turbulent time in the Tudor times. Any other notable moments in history? Well, we had our problems during the English Civil War, when it wasn't a question of Catholics and Protestants, it was more a question of Roundheads and Cavaliers. And what was Dunstable, Roundhead or Cavalier? Dunstable was on the side of the Roundheads, and the neighbouring Buckinghamshire was on the side of the Cavaliers. And one Sunday in 1644, a detachment of royal soldiers came with their pistols and they stormed the church and they took pot shots at the rector. Did he survive? Yes, he did. And the congregation in the pews. Nobody was hurt, luckily. That was lucky. But we do have the bullet holes in the doors. Yeah. But the first claim to fame of the Priory is outside, and it's of a literary nature. This pole is about where the cloisters would have been in the original Priory building. OK. And it was here in the early days of the Priory that Geoffrey de Gorham put on a play about the martyrdom of St Catherine, and it was the first play in the vernacular English that we know of to be performed in England. So it's another first for Dunstable. That's incredible. Yeah. Hugh, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge about Dunstable and the Priory here. It's full of history and it's well worth a visit, definitely. Thank you.
So, although the Priory no longer exists, this place is home not only to a first in English literary history, but also, more importantly, to the beginning of England's religious Reformation. Now, who'd have thought this unassuming church in the middle of a Bedfordshire town would have played such a pivotal role in our past?